I welcome you to the Messiah Revelation Ministry. We focus on end time events. We are living in the last days. We are living at a time when the seventh trumpet, which is the final trumpet of heaven, has sounded. And so, whatever events that you see happening in the world, we have to look at it and we have to interpret it within the context of end time prophecies. The time is ticking. The prophetic clock of the Messiah is already ticking because the final trumpet of heaven has sounded based upon a revelation. And today we are focusing on Israel. We are focusing on the events that happened in Israel the first week of October 2023, involving Hamas, an attack on Israel, and the responses that are happening. Death tolls, people dying. Anytime people die is pathetic, particularly when those who die probably were not saved. They did not receive the Messiah. They did not believe in Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and they died in unbelief, and the future is grooming for them. And so anytime there's war, the first question you ask is, those people who died, were they saved before they died? Anytime when somebody dies, you have to ask the question, was the person saved before he or she died? And that's how we have to look at the events happening in Israel. People are calling for war. People are protesting against war. People are protesting for war. And people are talking about World War III. These are all parts of wars and rumors of wars. We are in war. Ukraine has a potential to lead to a major war. And now the attention is shifting to Israel. Israel is being attacked, has been attacked, as you are aware. And what are the prophetic implications with the attack and the war? Anytime there is a war in the Middle East, a lot of people believe that that's it. That will be World War III. That's it. That will be the rapture. And all these things must be examined in the context of prophecy. The Messiah said, prior to his coming, there will be wars and there will be rumors of wars. And that's another prophecy. The other prophecy relates to Jerusalem. And the prophecy is that Jerusalem will be a cup of intoxication, and nations and armies will surround Jerusalem. And it's the will and purpose of God for the armies to surround Jerusalem, and it will be the place where the Lord Almighty will show wonders. He show his powers. Jerusalem is a place where the armies of the world will meet and the Lord will show his powers. The Ezekiel prophecy in Ezekiel 38 is pending, a time when a coalition of nations will invade Israel, and the Lord will respond, and the Lord will defend Israel. The question, though, is not very straightforward. What Israel are we talking about? There's a contention that those who occupy the land based upon 1948, um, are not the real Israel. And that also leads to another prophecy in the Bible. Luke chapter 21, verse 24. The Messiah said that in the end times, Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles, the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles are up. And so you have to look at the events in Israel around Jerusalem from two angles. The first angle, that is the angle of the evangelicals in America, is that Israel is the chosen of God. In 1948, they were gathered through the Balfour Declaration, and they will be attacked. And so anytime Israel is attacked, they consider that to be the Gentiles attacking the children of Jacob and fulfilling prophecy. And that's the angle of the evangelicals, particularly American evangelicals, including Pastor John Hagee. And most Americans believe that Israel, present Israel, political Israel, is the true Israel, and Israel will be hated by all nations based upon prophecy. And so they interpret the Hamas attack as fulfillment of prophecy. And they are quoting Psalm 83, and they are saying that it is prophesied that there will be a conspiracy against Israel, and the Hamas attack and support from Iran and other groups constitutes a fulfillment of prophecy, or the beginning of fulfillment of prophecy. That's one angle. The angle of the evangelicals, pro-Israelis and pro-Israel, and American evangelicals who actually claim that prophecy is being fulfilled. The other angle is the angle that I'm looking at, and my contention and my belief, my assumption and my revelation and my stand is that the children of Jacob are scattered. They are scattered over the world, and they are the Hebrews, and the identity has been stolen. The Hebrews, some people call them Negroes, and some of them were enslaved 400 years ago, and they are scattered over the world, and they are not gathered yet, and they are waiting for the gathering, and the person who will do the gathering is the Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus Christ. They believe in him, and for them, what is happening in Israel is also a fulfillment of prophecy. And the scripture that is relevant is Luke chapter 21, verse 24. The Messiah was telling the Israelites, the Hebrews, before he ascended into heaven, that they will be captives of war, and that happened around AD 70, and they will be taken captives into all nations. And later on, you saw the captivity coming all over. Hebrews, Negroes being made captives. And the historic event that you can refer to is the Atlantic slave trade. And for the Hebrew who are scattered over the world, the events in Israel must be looked from a different prophetic angle. And the angle is that Jerusalem is now being trodden by Gentiles. And you see the wars going on in Israel, and their target is to capture Jerusalem, to occupy Jerusalem, and to defy Jerusalem. In other words, Jerusalem is being trodden down by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are up. The war that will happen in Israel will determine the status of Jerusalem, and at the end of the day, the air will be clear and everybody will know whose city is Jerusalem. Everybody will know who are the true Israelites. The gathering of the Hebrews will come based upon Isaiah 11:11, and at that time, everybody will know who the true Israelites are. Whether it's political Israel, whether the Israelites are those who are occupying the land now, and whether the attack on them is a fulfillment of prophecy. The questions will be answered. It will be answered at the appropriate time, and the Messiah, who is the light, who is the truth, will always allow the truth to come. Talking about the Hamas war against Israel and Israel's war against Hamas, why is it that the attack was not predicted? Why didn't they foresee that Hamas was going to attack Israel? It's very, very relevant question, because Israel has one of the best intelligence in the world, and they could have known, or they should have known, that the attack was coming. And not only that, they have the Iron Dome, a defensive apparatus that is touted as one of the best in the world, but it failed this time. And so the Mossad, Israeli intelligence, I would say, failed this time. The political establishment failed this time. The intelligence from the CIA probably failed this time. And so people are asking whether this thing was planned, or it was just something that happened. Definitely the question is important, because if you look at 911, some people say it was planned. It was planned because the establishment knew that an attack was going to happen in America, in the same way that people are suspecting and saying that the establishment knew that Hamas was going to attack Israel. And so this is a setup. Was it planned, or is it prophetic? We have to ask those questions. Regardless of how you look at it, we have to conclude that it's all predicted in the Bible. Prior to the coming of the Messiah, there will be wars and rumors of wars. And these wars may not necessarily be wars instigated by God. It is part of the preparation for the coming of the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is someone who will come as a peacemaker. And so when there's war, it is setting the stage for the Antichrist, who will appear as a man of peace. And so we need to consider these events in that context. We're talking about whether the Hamas attack was planned, whether the establishment knew about it. And the events in October add to this suspicion. October 2023, October 4th, 2023, you saw what happened in America. They tested the emergency system, emergency assessment system, emergency response system, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, tested America's readiness for an emergency, nuclear emergency. On the same day, Russia also tested her preparedness for potential nuclear attack. The same day, October the 4th, 2023. And then at the weekend, here we saw in the headlines, Hamas attacking Israel. They call it a surprise attack because nobody knew it was happening. Was it a surprise attack or was it a planned attack? You have to remember that in the last days there will be deception. We are in the era of the New World Order, which is an era of deception because it's the stage, the last stage in the dispensation, the stage that will be used by the son of perdition, the man of sin, and they are preparing for him. And war is one of the means through which the people controlling the world will prepare for the Antichrist. The Antichrist is a person of lawlessness, and war is a lawless event. It's a lawless project. It's satanic because the purpose of war is to kill, and the manifesto of Satan is to steal, kill, and destroy. And some of these wars are wars instigated by secret societies. They are wars instigated by merchants of war, and they do that to be able to profit from war. And when there's a tribal war in Europe, they call it World War. And when there is instigation of war by the merchants of war, they call it a World War. There are some people who stand to benefit from wars, including the war between Hamas and Israel. And immediately the war started, the warmongers are calling for war, and some of them are asking for the US to strike Iran, including some lawmakers in America, including some of the most conservative, including some of those, I don't know the word to use, but you hear American senators, some of them calling for a nuclear strike on Putin. Are they crazy? I'm not sure whether they are crazy, but when a senator calls for a nuclear strike on Putin, I believe that that senator is crazy. Because that is nuclear suicide, nuclear Armageddon. And they are not talking about the consequences of the war for not only Americans, but for the whole world. A leader could be a Freemason, a leader could be a warmonger, but that doesn't mean that what he says is the counsel of God. They cannot destroy the world. The world will be destroyed by he who created the world. Elohim destroyed the world the first time with flood, and this time he will destroy the world with fire. Babylon America will be destroyed by fire at the appointed time. We are not in chaos. We are not in anarchy. Whatever is happening in the Middle East is part of prophecy. Number one, Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are up. And so he who occupies Israel is not necessarily the chosen of God. He who occupies Israel is not necessarily the one who is promised to be the possessor of Israel. It's not necessarily the chosen of God. After all, the Messiah was very clear that there will be a time that some people will call themselves Jews. They are not, but they are of the synagogue of Satan. And so we have to be very careful the way we interpret events, political events, particularly when it relates to the Middle East and when it relates to Israel and when it relates to Jerusalem. And so many predictions are wrong. It's wrong because the so-called prophets and pastors, they do not understand the Bible. They do not understand Bible prophecy. And they are misinformed and miseducated and misguided with regard to the identity of the Hebrews with regard to Bible prophecy. And as long as they are misguided, miseducated, and ignorant about the identity of the Hebrews, they will make mistakes and they will not be able to discern the prophetic times that we are in. And so I'm using this opportunity to go over the prophetic time that we are in, and we need to put the so-called war, Israel-Hamas or Hamas-Israel war, in that context. Number one, the final trumpet of heaven has sounded based upon revelation, and that's why you see all these events happening. And you saw America testing for an emergency October the 4th, 2023, and Russia also simulating a nuclear attack at the same day, the same time, the same month, the same year. And then at the weekend, you saw Hamas attacking Israel, and they are pretending they didn't know anything about it at all. Their intelligence all of a sudden failed. You see Mossad being one of the most sophisticated agencies in the world, so they didn't know the Iron Dome did not work. You have to look at all those things in the context of the time that we are in. Prophetic events are moving at a speed, and the world is moving closer and closer to apocalyptic times, apocalyptic levels. And when you hear about America moving warships in the Middle East, whether it's for a posture, whether it's for power projection, or whether it's part of a plan of a major war escalation, and all those things are part of the puzzle. We are living in perilous times. That makes it imperative for you and I to discern the time that we are in. As Hamas threatens to unleash mayhem on American facilities, American bases over the world, you also hear that sleeper cells are being activated. Whether it's true or false, you need to discern the time that we are in. Some news agencies are talking about the specter of release of sleeper cells, whether Iranian cells or Hamas cells, Russian cells, Chinese, living in America, and the potential that they will activate something inside the United States. All those things could be part of the reset of the global political and economic system. After all, there's a planned collapse of the American dollar. There's a planned collapse of the global economy. There's a planned collapse of the global health system. There is a planned reset of the global system to comply with the dictates and the mandates of the New World Order. And it's planned. The New World Order was planned at the time of the founding of America. It is part of their agenda, and it's part of the agenda of the New World Order. We are in the New World Order. The New World Order is the last dispensation in this world. It is the time for the revelation of the Antichrist, the beast, the man of lawlessness. And the lawlessness in America, the lawlessness in Europe, the lawlessness in Africa, Asia, the lawlessness in the international system is part of the lawlessness that will be unleashed by the Antichrist. So these events are precursor to the time of the beast, the time of the Antichrist. And so Israel war with Hamas is part of the prophetic time that we are in. And those who are planning wars can use any event to stage that war because they have the mandate from Lucifer to do that. They have the mandate from the beast to do that. And they have plans to complete the agenda. War results in depopulation. War results in profit for those who can test their weapons. War leads to global political realignments, and war is an instrument of global control. And so, regardless of how you look at the Hamas war with Israel, it is true that we are living in perilous times, and wars and rumors of wars constitute one of the fulfillment of prophecy. Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles. The Lord said in Zechariah that Jerusalem will be a burdensome stone. It will be a cup of intoxication for all nations. And so the people who are planning their wars for Jerusalem, in Jerusalem and outside Jerusalem, they are fulfilling Bible prophecy. But you need to be clear in your mind that the Hebrews are still scattered over the world. They are the Negroes. They are the true children of Jacob. They have not been gathered. And so anybody who fights for a war, thinking that he's fighting a holy war, you need to be very, very careful. You need to be able to interpret prophecy very carefully. You need to be able to look at events from the right prophetic lenses. The scattered children of Judah are still scattered over the world. They are not gathered, and Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles. Jerusalem will be a cup of intoxication, because the Gentiles will fight for Jerusalem, believing that Jerusalem belongs to them. They will fight useless fights and useless wars. They would think that their fight is holy, but it's not. It is not a fight that the Lord has ordained, even though the Lord knows that Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles. They will fight wars in Jerusalem. They will defend the city, thinking that the city belongs to them. But the prophecy is very clear. Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are up. And so the war, the Hamas war, must be looked at in the context of prophecy. Luke 21 verse 24, Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are up. And people will claim to be fighting for God. People who claim to be chosen by God. God will be fighting their wars for them. These are people who don't believe in the Messiah. These are people who don't believe in God. Those are people who are members of the Freemason, and their institutions and their beliefs and their lifestyle do not honor God. It is a repudiation of God. They are not obeying God, and the institutions that they hold are used to suppress the gospel of the Messiah. And so they are not for God. They are not about God. And God knows that. In the last days, everything will come out, the truth will come out. But what is happening with Israel and Hamas is part of a prophecy that Jerusalem will be trodden by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are up. Jerusalem will be a cup of intoxication for all nations. The bottom line is that the true children of Jacob will be identified. The Messiah will come and gather the true children of Jacob from all the corners to which they were scattered. I'm leaving the links in the description box. Subscribe to the channel, share the video. This is Messiah Revelation Ministry. Thank you.